Hello, my name is Gary Scudder. I'm a professor here in the COR, now much more ably assisted by the excellent Cindy Brandenburg. I want to talk about an assignment that I did just the other day in my COR 220 aesthetic expression class. And it's one of those, it probably would make a really good Linden experiment on creativity. I was actually on the bus, the shuttle heading up the hill, and I suddenly had this crazy idea for an assignment and went up here and very quickly threw it together, and it worked remarkably well. I was really pleased with how, as these things always go, you can spend 3 months planning an assignment and it fails magnificently, and you'll throw one together like that and it comes together brilliantly. I don't know, it probably has something to do with your own enthusiasm for it because you just thought of it. So here's the idea. This is a good assignment, I think, for the second day of a class like aesthetic expression. The first day is obviously, of course, the syllabus day. And the second day, I was trying to get them to think about the notion of whether or not they have aesthetic criteria. Because if you would ask them, what are your aesthetic criteria, they would say, dude, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Or they would deny they have aesthetic criteria. But of course, everybody does. You see a painting, or you see a sculpture, or you see a film, and you have a response. And it's not entirely an emotional response. You have criteria in there somewhere. So here's the assignment. Essentially what I did was in Art Store, I put together a folder that I just called something dramatic like COR 220 Day 1. And I just put in 10 random works of art that I literally put together in 10 minutes that morning. And they were like Gauguin's The Spirit of Death Looks On, a classic Hellenistic statue, something from Jackson Pollock, Botticelli's Adoration of the Magi, but also some really modern stuff. That Tracy Emin's, one of her remarkably sort of subversive neon light presentations. So it doesn't even matter. I also had a picture of the Sheikh Zayed Mosque in Abu Dhabi, and an African mask, and a Persian miniature. I think it's totally inconsequential, but I wanted 10 remarkably disparate works of art. Okay. And I did it in Art Store. In fact, you could go into Art Store under my COR 220, and there's a million folders, and feel free to knock yourself out and use the one I did. Or you could put it in PowerPoint or whatever and how you wanted to do. It doesn't matter. So then I got the students together and I said, okay, break yourself up into groups. You got like 5 minutes. And the older I get, the more I tend to give them really short group assignments in class. And I'll say like, you have 3.5 minutes, go. But I don't really believe in so much the longer one, but I like the shorter one because it's really dramatically answer this question now. So the question I asked him was, of course, unanswerable. And that was, okay, list this 1 through 10 in regards to best art to worst art. And of course, the really bright students immediately got it. We're like, dude, you can't really do this. Now, there's a reason why I'm doing this, because I'm making them do something which in some senses is impossible. But it sets up the next class, wherein in Chapter 1, in Freeland's But Is It Art?, she talks to people like Hume and Kant who essentially say, yes, you in fact can do this. That some art is clearly better than other art, and they philosophically attack this. So the smarter students immediately want to take this almost deconstructionist point of view as no art is better than any other art. And of course, I scold them savagely for this. So they start working, and the reason why I have them do it in groups is because it makes them understand immediately that other people have different opinions on how this works. And they immediately, sometimes the groups fracture very quickly because they realize they can't agree on anything. But that's okay, that's kind of the point of this. Then, when they're done, again, I give them like 5 minutes. I make them go up to the board and write it 1 through 10. And I make them stay up at the board. I don't let them go back to their class. They have to stay up there because I like the idea of, again, changing the structure of the class. And I make them walk me through why they chose 1 through 10. Now, just as it doesn't matter what the hell the 10 were, it doesn't matter what their ranking is. That's totally inconsequential to this. Though it's interesting, the choices they make. The important thing is this. When they start describing their intellectual process in choosing the 1 through 10, I stop them quite frequently, and then we as a class talk about the aesthetic criteria they used. And a lot of it's based on, wow, that looks really hard to do, and it was well done. So they base things on a technical list. Or is there a clear message? They really like stuff which has a social conscience to it. Like they love, I chose one of Banksy's graffiti walls, and the students were all over that. And so they liked that, or they thought it was just beautiful, or they found themselves sometimes saying, this is just, I know enough about art to know that this is important. Either artistically or historically, this is significant. And every time they come up with a different criteria, I write it on the board. And they begin to realize that, hell, I do actually have a whole set of aesthetic criteria. I just didn't know that that's how I viewed art. And one of the students was really interesting is he said, look, I just have a mess. I have a whole bunch of things that are fighting inside of my head that made coming up with this list very complicated, because I was putting something up that I didn't like as much, but I thought it was important, so I bumped it up third. So they suddenly realized that not only do they have aesthetic criteria, but that aesthetic criteria is often conflicted and makes it for a tough choice. And that's why I wrote it all down. And at the end, as is my wont, and my colleagues will smile at this, I said, okay, thank you. Now here's the thing. Let me tell you now the correct answer. And that is this. It is in fact Gauguin's Spirit of Death Looks On. It's the greatest painting of these 10, and in fact the greatest painting of all time. And the students rolled their eyes, as they should. And I said, why do we know this is true? And of course the students who've had me will go like, well, because you said so. Yes, but more than that, who better? I'm smarter, I'm older, I have a PhD, I've traveled the world, so by definition my opinion means more than your opinion. And I do this specifically to start a fight. However, that is essentially what Hume's argument is in chapter 1 of the same book, which we discussed the next day, when Hume says, look, it's based on, education experience, which allows you to make these decisions, and these people will reach the same solutions by consensus. So it actually sets up the next time very well. By the time it's over, what they have learned is that they do have aesthetic criteria. They have conflicting aesthetic criteria. And it's very difficult to come up with one set of rules by consensus, which is exactly what I want them to get the first day. But in this way, I don't have to tell them that. They tell themselves that. And it leads to a very energetic discussion. So anyway, it worked very well. I'm happy to talk about it more. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you.